Hello, I'm Andrew, and the book I did was Ceremony by Leslie Marmon Silko. This book kind of was about a boy named Teo, I guess kind of an adult, but basically him trying to figure out his identity and trying to negotiate and navigate the tension between the two cultures that he's a part of, one being white and another being Native American. And this is also set in the 40s, in the 1940s and whatnot. Um, the book overall was very interesting. It was the author was very descriptive in her with her words and whatnot. She was a very good storyteller and whatnot. She provided a lot of strong imagery within the book, and there was a lot of big kind of issues that were presented and just like real struggles of a man who's trying to figure out who he is and like the struggles of being in that time period of being a native in the 1940s America. There's also some kind of depressing at times and whatnot. There's a lot of grim and kind of just like existential kind of crises that Teo was facing, but it was also very unique. Just kind of like the methods that Teo was using to try to get through what he was experiencing through the war that World War II that he participated in, and also the struggles he was having back home on his reservation, and just kind of the different thought processes and kind of things he talked about were quite unique and interesting. But first off, for the language, I know the entire book was written in English, but upon some further research, apparently that the parts of the character that like the Teo had to go to like healers and whatnot, and in order to try to kind of heal his trauma and whatnot, and apparently like the parts when the healer was speaking, it was what was being written down was kind of a translation of what the healer was speaking from the original language or the old dialect is what they say and whatnot. So it's kind of interesting that it's not like, oh, this is exactly what I'm trying to say in English, but it's, we have to go through a translation first to kind of get to the meaning. So I kind of believe that helps to preserve, some of the original culture by keeping that alive and utilizing that, and also having some sort of kind of mystery and kind of unique, like specialness and loftiness to what was being said. Um, Next one, dominance. Teo, he's the main character. He does a few things to kind of stay kind of connected with his home culture and whatnot. He likes to really fully embraces and enjoys the Native American culture that his family members kind of groom or instilled into him. And I guess as I was talking about healers and whatnot, instead of kind of seeking like a professional psychologist, he goes to a healer, Native American healer or a couple of them, and tries to solve his issues through them and whatnot. And then yeah, also he lives on a reservation, so he kind of has a bit of a barrier between the greater white culture. Third, the style, the manner in which the author portrayed the clashing of white culture, Native American culture, kind of helped to reveal how she viewed and like how kind of maybe Native Americans at the time viewed white culture and whatnot. Some of the characters that she added were very negative towards white people and whatnot, which probably was the case for a lot of natives, and rightly so. um, but also she kind of emphasized how, despite kind of the destructive nature of whites in the past, but she now acknowledges that there's kind of a mixing and a blending that now has to kind of happen, and that both cultures have kind of contributed to each other's identity now, and creating that. So then for differences, um, the book highlighted the Lagana's agricultural heritage, which was kind of the type of Native American kind of culture that Teo was from, and that the book was kind of focusing on. Those people are farmers and they really relied on crops for a living, and they were heavily dependent on rain. So, trying to everything evolved rain and crops and whatnot, and the weather and whatnot. So that was a huge kind of deal for them and focusing on that. and that kind of contrasts within with the expanding industrial culture of kind of the white population, to where factories were being built. There's a lot of mining operations or even like military operations that were being conducted. But yeah, both cultures in doing pursuing agriculture are expanding the industrial kind of facet. Both cultures are just seeking a better life for themselves and want to grow more and do more and flourish. So then for enculturation, Teo is kind of connected to the main culture of white because one, he's mixed. He's half white and half Laguna or native and whatnot. Also, he a common thing too was that his green eyes are referenced a lot, kind of showing the whiteness in him. And then additionally, he served in World War II as a soldier and kind of was able to participate and serve America, the broader white culture, that way. So that's kind of a big connection from his too. And then a lot of his friends were soldiers too. For communication, some of the main insights that we can draw from the novel, I believe, is that we must be sensitive towards the damage that that kind of whites have done in the past to Native American culture and society and life. But we, along with Native culture, also must accept that we're not. While we are different, we also are the same, and we can complement each other very well because we're both ultimately kind of seeking some of the same things. So we can then kind of blend in that we can complement each other and then help to strengthen each other's culture and whatnot with kind of the positives of both culture. Then the connections. Some of the main things were like discrimination. That was kind of evident in all the white people and kind of white culture and whatnot. That was not valuing the natives and seeing them as less than them because they were not white. And then Teo and his friends only really felt equal to the whites when they were soldiers. It's the only time they were treated equally. Another one is rituals. As I said before, Teo participated in many ceremonies and rituals to kind of help heal him of the trauma that he was kind of going through. Superstitions. During his time in war, there's a huge rainstorm that was talked about toward the beginning of the book, and Teo was very annoyed, and it was hard to get through, and it was just so much rain that Teo prayed for it to stop, and because he prayed for the rain to stop during the war, he thought that he caused the drought, and he indirectly caused the drought that was occurring back home on the reservation. For symbols, alcohol is a routinely kind of mentioned symbol because that's kind of like the main default coping mechanism that him and all his friends are utilizing to kind of deal with the trauma. And then lastly, belonging. Teo saw kind of the faulty ways of the white people, and like when he went to white people's school before he went to war, and you kind of saw that and didn't really want to associate himself with that. So he identified and felt like he belonged more with Native culture. So then lastly, kind of the evaluation. Readability, I gave that about a 7 because the author wrote really well and was very descriptive, but the book kind of followed a linear pattern. So kind of events kind of jumped over the place and it was sometimes hard to follow. For cultural, the book kind of forces the reader to deal with some of the tough cultural issues and like history of the tension between natives and Native Americans and the white man. And then lastly, for the chorus, the story was a little strange still in general, but it still had good meaning and kind of good lessons to teach. So I think these issues kind of that it brings up are ones that are still part of American history, whether we like it or not. And when it comes to dealing with these issues, is kind of dealing and figuring out how we respond to these issues is probably the kind of the best result for that, and trying to figure out how we kind of move on from these bad things that happened. And yeah, that's about it. Overall, it was a good book, and I would encourage others to read it.